This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Are your eyes open to all of the possibilities that are available to you? Your dreams, your goals are more than wishful thinking. But we can often let our fears overshadow what we really want out of life. Joining me today is Andrea Johnson, a coach certified by the John Maxwell Team, to share her philosophy on intentional optimism. Welcome to the roller coaster, Andrea.
Thanks. Am I sitting in the front or the back?
I always like to sit in the front seat.
My hands are up.
There we go. Yeah. And, it's funny when I was, reading your bio, I was reminded that my very first introduction way back in 2007 to personal growth was by listening to John Maxwell.
Isn't he great?
My boss at the time, when he realized how far I was driving to and from work, it was only like 45-minute drive. He said, well, if you're putting a lot of screen time, you should be using your time wisely. I'm like, sure. Okay, what do you mean? And he handed me this binder with all of these plastic sleeves in it with CDs.
He gave you the CD sets.
And I guess he was part of some monthly club or something where he'd get a CD every month, and he had them all in this binder. And he basically handed it to me. And I just started
a lot of information.
I just started listening to the CDs, and I bought his books. And, he's very, very wise, but also he's got a very, what's the term, melodic voice in how he delivers.
Yeah. And it's rhythmic. And I mean, he was a pastor, so he knows how to deliver content. And he also is very kind of relatable. He's fatherly. He will use big words, but then he'll say, but I don't even know what that means. So he's funny, and he's self-deprecating in ways that are still really, really fun. And so I had no idea. What a great introduction. That's great.
Yeah. It was, when I saw that, it was, a fond memory. Yeah. I drove a Ford Focus, and I used to call it my Focus University.
Phenomenal. Yeah. That's great. Well, that's a little bit similar to his story. I don't know if you know that, but somebody asked him, like, his mentor asked him, what's your personal growth plan? And he said, my who? My what? And so he bought cassettes, right? And so he got on a monthly plan. So then he knew how to do that. Now, of course, you can just subscribe to several of his podcasts. So
exactly.
Yeah, there's some really good ones out there.
They are, and great books. So tell me, what is your journey then in becoming the intentional optimist?
So it started way back. For me, it started with Covey. It started with my first Franklin planner. I am by nature very curious. I want to grow. I'm always looking to learn. But when I started using the Franklin Covey system, you learn how to make your plans and what your values are and all that kind of stuff. And that was where I first started. It was that combined with, unfortunately, I ended up in the hospital for bulimia and depression in a 12-week program. I literally turned 20 in that program. And so the Franklin Covey system, along with somebody telling me, hey, you actually can decide how you want to feel and think and how your mind works. All those things combined were the catalyst to say, I need to grow here and I need to learn about myself. And as I continued on throughout the years, I was exposed to other leaders. I was not exposed to John Maxwell until much further down the road, but the different life experiences I had and going through counseling while getting out of depression, and my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that really kind of shakes you up. And I decided to make some changes along the line until, long story made very short, 2017, when we lost her to breast cancer. That's when I said, all right, I'm done with this pussyfooting around. I'm not playing around anymore. I need to know It's time for me to decide who I really am, what I'm really going to do, and why I'm here. And that's when I really started looking at, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? And what am I going to do with it? And I sat down and started writing out all my values and all of my goals and all of my dreams, because it's real easy to just kind of float along, right? I had a career. I have spent over 20 years in higher education, medical institutions, with doing administration and research administration and operations. And it's real easy to let somebody just kind of pave that way for you. But I knew there was something more. And so what I did was I wrote it all out and compiled it all down. And it came out to basically 6 tenets of a personal growth philosophy that became a personal growth plan. And that is what intentional optimism is. And so I just started sharing it with people. I was really timid at first. It's like, when you get your first IP, right? It's like, I have intellectual property. Oh, but it's not, it's not Brendan Burchard, or it's not John Maxwell, or it's not Rachel Hollis, or whatever, right? But when I finally started sharing it with people, it started to resonate. And I realized after about 6 months, this is not just a philosophy. This is my plan. This is how I do what I want to do. This is how I make the changes in my life that I want to make. And when I started presenting it that way, it really took off. And that's now what I do with other people. And I help other women do that.
There's so much similarity between, what you've gone through and what I went through, because although I mentioned that my personal growth journey started with John Maxwell in 2007, I want to say I was kind of dabbling in it, but it wasn't really until I hit a crisis point 10 years later that I actually stopped to ask myself those important questions. And it was from that process that I created something, journaling techniques for myself that basically took me from, what I call scraping the bottom of shit barrel to where I am today. Yeah. So it's really neat to be able to connect with somebody else that you're like, because you kind of feel like when you're going through these, you kind of think like, am I slow to pick up on this stuff? Like I was in my mid 40s.
Yes. Honey, I was 50 when this happened. Right. So here's the thing that we have to remember is that we get where we are supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. And that now, but yes. At the time when you're going through it, yes, I felt the exact same thing. Why am I so slow? It's like that whole, I'm a late bloomer. And the reality is no. It just, when a seed goes into the ground, and I mean, if you look at like a bulb, my favorite is like a crocus when they come up in the spring
through the snow.
And
yeah.
What's down there is that little bulb is sitting down there all winter, and they're the fastest to pop up, but they pop up in the snow. And it's like, why are you doing this? The timing seems all wrong. And yet it's perfect, right? It's the perfect timing for that bulb. And yet the tulip comes up later, and the iris comes up at a different time, and being willing to accept that. But taking the time to allow, and this is something I've talked with other people about, a crisis or grief or something like that to do its work in us is extremely valuable. And when, this is, you hear, I'm the intentional optimist. And so here I am talking about grief, but when we allow the reflective process to happen in those crisis times, then we are able to choose and be intentional about what we want to do, because we can then value what's already happened.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, going back to your bulb analogy, we don't criticize the bulbs for when, how long it takes them. We don't look at them all winter under the snow going, why haven't you popped up yet? And, fortunately for me, my desk overlooks a window. So I have a apple tree outside my window, and I get to watch it through the seasons and admire its beauty for each season. And I don't criticize that tree. And I use that as a tool to remind myself, okay, wait a second, you're just in this season.
It's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. It's hard though. It's really hard because you're like, I want it now. No, it's not ready.
I know. It's like, do you want to go off half-baked? But we do. And that's when we get in trouble. But, here's the thing. We are super resilient as people. I mean, we just are. And I have a almost 13-year-old son, and watching how he can be resilient in certain areas teaches me so much. And if you're not somebody who has kids, or if anybody's listening and they don't have kids, just observe. Just observe kids for a little while, because it will help you see how we can actually be resilient and just kind of let life go a little bit. There's a certain amount of that. Like I said, I spent over 20 years in the higher education medical system and university level, but I kind of coasted along, but at the same time, that's where I developed my leadership skills. That's where I developed my management skills. I spent 20 plus years helping really smart people figure out how to actually get their stuff done. And I didn't realize that's what I would end up doing as a coach, is helping really smart people figure out how to get their stuff done once they decided they didn't want to be in that system anymore. So it's not that I necessarily work with medical professionals, or because I worked with cancer researchers. And then I ended up in the School of Medicine at another university where I worked with nephrology researchers. So everything from the college students or the PhD students, and then the PhDs, and working on COVID and kidney care and head and neck cancer and brain cancer. I helped them figure out how to get their grants, or figure out how to produce or publish their information, their own IP. And now I work with people with the same kind of mindset, these really intelligent, highly successful people, especially women. That's my preferred group to work with. I help them find accountability and community, and because they don't know. I was literally working with one the other day, a PhD, really sharp lady who's putting together this amazing program for teenagers. And she said, I don't know any other entrepreneurs. I'm like, yes, you do. And so it's when I look back on the 20 plus years that I spent in the university system, it wasn't wasted. It was time to go. And here's a funny for you. I was on LinkedIn the other day because it said, this many people have looked at your profile, right? So then of course you run to see, who looked at my profile? And we all do it, right?
Oh, yes.
So I ran to look to see who looked at my profile, and it was really odd. I'm like, oh, I spent 10 years and 7 months at Johns Hopkins University. And then it said, I spent 10 years and 7 months at the University of Virginia. Oh, evidently that's my limit. I had no idea. But, it just, those were 10 years and 7 months of preparatory work for what I do now at each of those institutions. And I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't had all that experience.
But going back, when you're in that season of your professional career, working for other people, and you're helping, as you said, doctors and researchers and PhDs, did you have the value on what you were doing then that you now have? Because
I had glimpses.
Yeah, because I know for myself, when I look back at some of the stuff, I used to write grants for our community, and I brought it's a tiny community, and I used to bring in money, and I started a nonprofit, and I did all of these things. And I was always like, yeah, okay, it's not a big deal. Anyone could do that. I completely dimmed my own light. Oh, yeah. And I think that's kind of something that we as women do. It's like, oh, no, it's not that big of a deal.
Oh, yeah. And I was highly sought after because I was a research administrator. I was a certified research administrator, meaning I took tests and proved that I understood the governmental regulations I could submit to the DOD and the NIH and the Department of Education and all the foundations. That's why I came to the University of Virginia, was to work in their central office. And I hate rules. But I know them. And so if you wrote grants, we've been on opposite sides of the fence here, but I would make sure that the grant that you wrote got where it needed to be with all the checks and balances, right? And at the time, and I still say this, but anybody can submit a grant if they can all you have to do is read instructions. But but the reality is it does take a special kind of person to be able to do it. That's why we have a shortage of these kinds of people. And yes, I dimmed my light. And when the pandemic hit, I supervised 12 people remotely and, ran operations. And I mean, I even had one doctor follow me from Johns Hopkins, not moving, but like she would email me when I left. Andrea, you're the only person I had to go to for this. I'm like, really? Because that's like a basic Microsoft question. And then she moved to the Cleveland Clinic. She's like, Andrea, you're the only person. And I agree, Lucy. I don't know why we do that. But my desire and my mission is to help women understand exactly that we don't need to dim it, that we do have wisdom, that we do have experience and skills that we can use to do whatever we believe we are created to do.
Yeah. And, when you created your 6 tenets and you started sharing it, did those feelings kind of come up again where you're asking yourself, well, who am I to who am I to be talking about this?
Yeah. I mean, when the very first time I shared it, because I put it in a big spreadsheet, right? So it's like, I have 6 tenets and then under each one, it's all, mapped out and everything. The first person I shared it with is a data person. And she said, oh, wow, that's a lot of information. And I'm like, oh no. But the more I live it, the more I realize these are unique. And they're unique in the sense that they're my unique perspective. They're not unique to the personal growth sphere. They're just unique to my perspective. And my perspective is something that somebody needs. And I have women in my community that say, I'd let you teach me how to watch paint dry. I'm like, well, why? Because I'm the one that they need to hear it from. And I'm the one who connects with them. So yes, there have been plenty of times like they're just these things. It's just, this stuff. But I do now, I have ways in which I explain it. I explain it as pillars, or I explain it as I grew up sailing. So I explain the tenets in a sailboat and, with the different parts. And I've even now built my community for female entrepreneurs, which is collaborative, in a way to give them the tenets of intentional optimism in order to accomplish their mission. So that's what intentional optimism is for. It is not my mission it is my mission to be an intentional optimist, but that's just kind of who I am. But it is my mission to give you intentional optimism to help you accomplish your mission. And a lot of times when I teach it, even the people that have known me for years are like, oh, I never thought of it that way. It's just because it's your unique perspective.
And that's the thing, is that, when we look at the world of coaching, there's always somebody that's going to present something in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's going to resonate with me. Sometimes it's going to resonate with you. And that's sort of the beauty when we put ourselves into our work, is that, you're going to attract the people that resonate with you, that need to hear your message. That's just the way, in my belief, that's just the way our universe works.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
And, going back to, what we were saying about when you start feeling that question of who am I to be doing ... I use that as a sign that I'm leveling up, because it means that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone.
Right.
It's scary because you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. But that you're starting to you're starting to get to the edge of your circle and then go beyond it.
Right.
And just step out of that comfort zone.
Well, I even had a conversation with somebody that's coaching me right now. And this is this week. Actually, it was on Monday. And I said, I'm not really a business coach because I don't really have a business. And she's like, what? Stop. Your LLC has been in place for 3 years. You have a business. I'm like, I know, but I just quit my job and I'm just now doing it full time. She's like, stop. So anybody listening, we go through the same thing you do. And we have those same coaches are not unicorns. We are just, steps ahead of you and shining a light and reaching our hand back to help you come along. And that's the way I like to describe it, is that somebody else is like those little monkeys in the barrel, right?
Oh,
it's yeah. Somebody else is above me, helping me go up, and I'm back here reaching down and helping them. Do you use the video, or do you just...
It records it.
It's a great little analogy.
It was monkeys in a barrel.
Monkeys in a barrel. Yeah. And the whole...
That totally reveals our age, I think.
I'm proud. I don't
I
care.
so am I. I'm on the upswing to 50. I'm good with that.
I'm 55. So, it's, yeah, my husband's like, are you sure do you want to apply for AARP? And I'm like, no. But anyway, when we do that, we stay in community, and we use exactly what we're being given for the next person. And I think that's how we're supposed to work. And that's how we flourish.
Yeah, I believe it was the saying is an African proverb of each one teach one.
Oh yeah. Okay. Each one teach one. I thought you were going to go with the African proverb of walking alone, you can go far. Or you can go far walking alone, but you can go, you can go fast walking alone. There we go. Or you can go far walking together.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so that's kind of mine. It's like we go farther when we go together. So that's the community I'm building. And that's part of intentional optimism, is being in community. That's my highest value. And if we're not doing something to build community and the flourishing of others around us, then we're just in it for ourselves. And it's just, there's no point.
Yeah. And, I think there's still a large portion, let's say, of society that is stuck in that competitive nature, that scarcity nature.
Yeah.
And, I was there because for a long period of my life, I didn't know anything differently. Mm-hmm. But once you come out and you step out the other side and you can look back, you can see, oh, wait a second. No wonder I had depression. No wonder I felt alone. No wonder. And you can go through this long list of things.
Anxiety, bulimia, all of it.
It's because you're living in this scarcity and competitive nature.
Right. And I think as women, because of, I don't know, I just say the word patriarchy. It's just like, because of historical patriarchy, I think as women, we are more inclined to do that because there seem to be there feels like there's so few places for us to go up. And the thing that really pushed me to the point of saying, yeah, it's time to go, were a couple of things at my last job where I got a promotion, but I didn't really get a raise because it was equity of the other people at my level. And I had been doing the work, but I didn't have the title yet. So they were already doing the work, or they had the title. And I said, really? I'm taking on more responsibility and I'm taking a level up, and I'm getting nothing. And that's that. I came home, and that was a year and a half ago. I came home and I told my husband, I said, take notice. This is the last time anybody will ever tell me how much money I can make. And that was the last straw. And then that's when I got really, really serious about building my business. And then some things happened at the end of the pandemic. I was like, okay, it's really, really, really time. When everybody's remote and they're like, no, we think you need to be back in the office. I'm like, oh, I think I don't. I think I'm done. But so
something happened over the pandemic, because we have seen this mass exodus of people going, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's over yet.
Oh, it's not. They're calling it the Great Resignation. And I just get this. I competed in a little local Shark Tank kind of thing. And the local small business development got together with 5 counties. And I was a finalist, and It was a lot of fun. But part of the other piece that I do as a John Maxwell, so I have my intentional optimism and my coaching and my Launch from the Beach group, the ladies, the entrepreneurs. And then as far as my John Maxwell Team stuff is concerned, I'm a certified DISC consultant, and I'm licensed to use his teaching materials. And so one of the things that I'm doing is I'm talking to local schools about taking reports in there for middle school and high schoolers and teachers and staff, because we don't have the soft skills. And now that we've been 18 months in a pandemic, we really don't have the soft skills. And Gallup is telling us that over 70% this is in the United States, over 70% of workers are disengaged on some level. 15% of all US workers are actively disengaged, meaning they don't care whether or not they show up. They don't care whether or not you actually make a profit. They have no desire for quality control. And because of the soft skills that we don't have, like leadership and personal growth, all the things that you understand well, people are quitting. And a lot of it, I want to say the statistic might be 60 some odd % of people who leave their jobs leave because of a poor manager. So if you teach your people how to actually be leaders rather than just managers, and I see that as the difference between the carrot or the stick for the donkey, right?
I think
you teach them,
we've all had more managers than we've had leaders in life, I would say.
sure. Well, it's easier, right?
Yeah.
It's what we kind of do as parents. It's like we adopted my son, and 14 years into our marriage, and I was born in the 60s, right? So it's like, I'm from that generation of kids are supposed to be seen and not heard. I'm like, why are you not doing what I told you to do? And it turns out he's ADHD, and we had to learn a whole new parenting style. It would have been a really rough road if we were not willing to learn and grow. And it's so much easier for a manager to just hammer down, right? Do this, do that. You're not doing that right. So let me fix you. Well, maybe that's not their skill set, or maybe their strength is in a different area. Yeah, it's a lot more work.
Oh, it is. And definitely that was not our parenting style because it didn't work for me. I did not like to be told what to do. I don't like rules, and I question things, and I want to learn for myself. It does not go well with my parents were British. So that just does not go well. You don't question, you don't do things differently. Mm-hmm. But we were intentional with our kids, and we took a completely different approach, mm-hmm. and we let them discover who they want to be.
And that's what we're working on. And that's how we're, like I said, he'll be 13 in December. And so now it's a whole new whatever. And so that's part of, I think, what keeps my brain in a growth mindset is I have to learn, because he's more important than me being right. He's more important to develop who he is and to watch him blossom and to be everything that he can be is much more important than me having everything look exactly like I think it's supposed to look. Exactly. It's just my opinion, right? That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And, so.
Our kids are 19 and 22, and they live on their own. They're in a different city. They go to college. And, again, we were intentional with how we were guiding them to pursue. And it's really cool when they become adults and, you can have these conversations. I think I've learned more from my kids than they did from me. It's just, when they start saying back to you the wisdom that you gave them, you're like, oh, okay. I think
I'm waiting for that day.
I think I did something right. Like I'll say to them, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I did a whole lot right, but I think that was one of them.
That's phenomenal. And
it's fun.
It's so nice to be able to talk to women who are professional and moms and, just the whole gamut, and to be able to say, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me. And there are ways in which being an older mom is helpful. There are ways in which is not, partially because I'm exhausted all of the time, but I'm learning to roll with the punches. I'm learning to just listen to other moms who've said, oh, I've been there. I know what 12 and 13 and 14 is like. It'll be all right.
Yeah. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah. You will.
Nobody will die.
Andrea, as we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think that if I could say to anybody, especially to the women out there like you and me who said, gosh, were we sitting there a long time, just kind of like really slow? You're not slow. The timing is right. The timing could be right now. And you were created specifically to do good things. And it is time to figure that out, or you probably already know what it is. So act on it. Talk to either one of us, because we are willing to help you get there, or find somebody who can help you get there, because it's absolutely never too late, ever, to be exactly who you were supposed to be.
Love it. Love it. And where is the best place for people to connect with you, Andrea?
My website is pretty simple. It's theintentionaloptimist.com. And you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all under The Intentional Optimist. And I am happy to correspond with anybody. And you can even email me, Andrea at theintentionaloptimist.com. We're good to go.
Make sure you check out the show notes. I'm going to have all of the links in there. And Andrea, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. This was a great roller coaster ride.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby.